All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 7 of Run It Back. Uh, Big shout out to begin with to Rising Coaches to help me with this creative venture and always sort of show support and bring together some coaches with some like-minded philosophies who want to talk about the game, shoot the breeze, so to speak. For those of you tuning in for the first time and watching the replay for the first time ever, oh, we got Enrico joining us big time. We're going international. I love it. So basically, the premise of the show is that we look at teams that have played previously and we take on the viewpoint of one of the two teams and we run it back. We have a theoretical rematch and discuss what changes we would make for the upcoming game, what worked, what didn't work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this week we are talking about the national championship game at the U Sports level here in Canada. It is between Carleton and Dalhousie, and we are taking on Dalhousie's perspective. We're very fortunate today to have the now former lead assistant at Dalhousie, Anton, join us to lend his perspective on everything, which I'm very thankful for. So thanks for jumping in, sir. Let me set the stage a little bit about this game and who Carleton and who Dalhousie are, because we got a lot of American, some international coaches in here. Not everybody may or may not know, but to say that Carleton has been dominant in Canada would be an understatement. 15 of the past 19 national championships now after winning this game have been won by Carleton. And let's just kind of go into a little bit of detail about them this particular past season. They were 98 points for and 65 points against. So this was Taffy Charles's first year as the head coach at Carleton, who was a former player at Carleton a long time ago, and if I'm not mistaken, is the leading scorer in Carleton's history. But predominantly the program has been run by Dave Smart for the past almost 20 years. And Dave Smart is pretty much internationally known as being a guru of basketball, won over 95% of his games. In fact, in the past 10 years in conference, Carleton is 203-8, including 5 perfect regular seasons and 55-5 in the playoffs. And then from the other side, Coach Plato took over Dalhousie 7 years ago, was it, or 8 years ago, Anton? 7 years ago, and has done a tremendous job in a different conference in Canada, in the AUS. They've won 5 conference titles, if I'm not mistaken. They've been to the Nationals basically almost every year that he's been the coach and had very deep runs. This was the first time ever that they've made it to our gold medal game, and this is the best finish ever produced for them. So, I mean, they're no slouch either by any means. Both teams basically had perfect seasons this year. So Carleton won all of their regular season games except for one against Ottawa, and Dalhousie won all of their regular season games except for one against St. FX. So, I mean, you're looking at two titans, so to speak, in Canada. And like we have 2 leagues in Canada. We got a university league and a college league. University league is like our Division 1. So this is the top of the top in terms of school basketball in what's happening here. And then just to paint some picture about this specific game, it's a tale of 2 halves, in my opinion. And basically the first half, so my assistant, Mike Adamo, is on this call as well. And Mike and I were talking about this a little bit earlier in the week. But if you showed me the box score for this game without the score, just like the box itself, I think Dalhousie won this game, right? Like Carleton, they shoot 38% for the year from the 3-point. They're second best in the country, and they're held to 4 of 19 in this game, right? And 2 of 7 or 2 of 9 in the first half. And I mean, like, you just look at everything. Like the first half, the Dalhousie is up by 12 and they've out rebounded them by like double digits, etc. I mean, the game, it's just wild to look at the box. So anybody, before we do any sort of video or anything, maybe Coach Barry, Jump in, give me your perspective on what you saw, please and thanks.
Uh, it definitely was two different halves. I thought that we executed our game plan pretty well, especially in the first half against Carleton. You have to score somewhat, and then obviously you have to defend the three. So the last couple times we played them, we're like, well, know what? They're not going to shoot us out the gym. So if we give them something, it's that post play or the middle's kind of soft for us. And we actually started out in a zone. All right, like we started off in this little matchup zone at the beginning of the tournament, right? So they probably knew that we're going to start in it, but I know with their little bit of time of practice time, they weren't prepping for it. So we just wanted to disturb their rhythm to start off the game. Then the second half, they just regrouped, and I think we were talking the other day. You were like, they decided to stop shooting the basketball.
Yeah. So like my theory on that, and like I want to ask you some questions about the prep that you guys did going in, but I'll get to that in a minute or whatever. I mean, the national championship tournament for us is 3 games in 3 days. So you don't get a lot of practice time. You don't get a lot of scout time between games like you're talking about. But to me, it seemed like at the half, there was a major regroup from Carleton to just basically be like, we're not shooting the ball anymore, period. We are going to the rim. And I have some clips on this. If you guys don't mind, I want to share this, and I want to see sort of what everybody thinks. Like, how do you stop a team that is this good at getting to the rim, that has made this decision type deal, and where are you making adjustments? Everybody give me a thumbs up. We're good here. All right. So, I mean, last play of the first half, you know, we hit a 30-footer, and just before we move on, we hit the 30-footer. You can see the scores up here or whatever. You end up being up 12. So totally different half. I mean, you hold Carleton to 24 points in a half. You're like, all right, we've got a chance. We're in here. We're coming out swinging. And there's a bunch of clips here, so just kind of bear with me. I won't even really talk through them too much, but like, it's literally just like, we're going to come out and we're going to get to the basket all the way through, attack the paint all the way through. And Carleton's got great guards, you know, Munis Tutu, and even coming off of the bench, like, you know, they had guys like Aiden Warnholz coming out and getting to the basket, et cetera. But like, you've seen Joseph can get to the basket, Lloyd Pandy can get to the basket, Marcus Anderson can get to the basket. It's just all the way through. It's like, it's hard to be able to deal with this ability to get in the paint, and like, you know, even on that, it's going out, but like, they can get in there, and they've decided we're not shooting anymore. We're crashing into bodies, and they're using their Nash series and finishing at the rim. So just bear with me a second as it all plays through, but rim, 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 which is obviously the constant theme. So what, if any, adjustments are you guys making at Dalhousie after seeing this game plan of, hey, like, they're just going right at us over and over and over and over again?
Well, I'll start off, I guess. So that kid there, Louis, what is his number? 41 or 43?
Who are we talking about? Sorry.
What,
Lloyd
Alain
Pan.
Louis?
Oh, Alain Louis is 43. Yeah.
Yeah, he hurt us off second half. So in our scouting report, for him with ball screen was to go under. And then he hit 1 3 in the first half. Then Plato kind of freaked out and was like, I don't like that. So then, as you can see, we kind of, right, just one shot, and he's not the best shooter. So we changed the ball screen coverage on him, and he must have been working on that snake dribble all year because, as you guys see from the clips, he's just getting into the lane. So me, if I was on Dalhousie's bench, I probably would have tried to go under that ball screen and keep him on the perimeter. But
So let's talk about scouting a little bit and preparation. So, I mean, coming into this, like we said, there's a short turnaround, and this is a constant theme on this show that we talk about. Like, you guys played some hard games getting through to the finals. how do you prepare for Carleton in a day? Like, what do you do? Like, in your walkthrough, are you going through any of their actions? Are you doing a lot of film instead? Do you not sleep the night before? Like, how does this tournament take its toll on you mentally? And any other coach, please feel free to jump in and ask a little bit about this, because for me, and Jimmy can attest to this, I talk about Carleton a lot. I really do, because their dominance has been incredible to me. Like, I've heard Dave speak numerous times, and even though this is Taffy's team now, you can see Dave is on the bench there, and Dave's influence is obviously still felt in the program or whatever. But one of the constant themes that he talks about is sustainability. And Anton and I were talking before this, like, they don't do much. They've got good guards that get in the paint and they play really hard, tough-nosed defense, but they do it better than anybody else over long periods of time. And you're not talking about having the best players for 2 years or 3 years. You're talking about 20 years of dominance. So how do you prepare for a monster like that? Mike, I know you got some notes in there, man. What did you see? What do you think?
Well, I got a couple questions about it. I'm actually like very curious, like what game did you guys use to scout Carleton? Because Carleton, a lot of their games were like blowouts. And on that quick return round in a tournament like that, did you guys have a scout for like every team ready, like going into that tournament, or was it kind of day by day thing?
Well, I had a scout for every team.
Yeah.
Like UBCB played them last year.
Mm-hmm.
And honest truth, I just watched a couple of their games again. Jaden Covey does the same thing. So last year I was like, Coach, we got to force this kid to a strong hand, because everything he does is to his left. He looked at me crazy, but I trust you. So we just used the same game plan, and we were pretty successful. With Carleton, really, I probably watched just about every clip that night. But for us, I must say that we've been kind of practicing for Carleton all year. So we practice on the ball screen a lot. We practice rebounding every day, 15 minutes every day, because they are zombies on that glass. And, I think against Western, they beat them 57-29 on the glass the day before.
Right.
Right. So
I think that's accurate, actually. I think I saw that.
Yep. So and we weren't scared. I've been hearing a few people saying that you can't fear Carleton. We weren't scared, and we just played our game. So I must say, in preparation, we're more worried about what we do well than what Carleton does well. We feel that we're at that point in time where they had to worry about us just as much as they had to worry about, or we had to worry about them. So,
what did you feel you were trying to get offensively against them? Because like Carleton's offense, like I said, is guards getting into the lane, etc. But Carleton's defense is very interesting, to say the least. Like, they pick you up full court, man. They never play zone. They're always in man. Like, according to Synergy, it's 100% of the time type deal.
mm-hmm.
But they're swarming, and they never reach on penetration. They're always reaching at the point of pass or at the point of where you stop your motion, that kind of stuff. And they're swarming the ball. What did you want to establish?
Right. Yeah. So Coach Plato, he runs the O, I run the D. So want to try to get touches on multiple sides of the floor, and then hopefully try to get a closeout for one of our shooters or for our point guard Keevan. Our big kid Kappas, he's really not a back to the basket guy, so we really couldn't chuck it into him. They kind of sniffed out his pick and pops a lot. So, but I thought that our point guard Keevan, he played pretty well in the first half. He was able to manipulate them in the ball screen. But yeah, if we can try to eat up some clock and then get a pick and roll or attack a closeout, then yeah, that's what we're looking for on offense.
So, like, going back to Mike's question, what games did you use for this scout?
So honestly, I used their one against Ottawa without their best players.
Right.
And the Ryerson game.
Right.
And their games from the tournament. because they are who they are. But I find the last couple of years in the second half, they always throw out a play that I never saw before, and our guys weren't ready for it first. So in this game, they threw out that weave to that middle ball screen, and
Right.
I didn't see it in the film that I watched. So you know, by the time we're able to try to react and recover with our guys, it was a little late.
So, a national championship game. Some of us will never be fortunate enough to be in one of that. And it's a few months later, and you look back on it. What would you change if it was to happen again this weekend and you had all your guys healthy, etc.? What would you say, this is what I'm going to do differently for this one?
Defensively, probably would have stuck with the game plan with the ball screen, well, on that kid. The matchup zone that we threw at them in the first half, looking back at it, we probably should have maybe threw it back at them at the beginning of the second half, right? Yeah, they went in and talked about it, but it was like, you know, if the ball went to the wing, we're in man, the ball backs up to top, so you really can't plan for it or draw something up for it aside from like a ball screen. But our offense, I just feel that when they were pressuring us on the offensive end, like them scoring, I just thought that we were pretty passive on the defensive end. And I always thought for my defense to be good, I need a good offense. And I thought in the second half, we were getting garbage shots and they were just running it down in our throat and we couldn't set up. So, yeah. So that being said, we gave up 50 points too, so I'm not happy with that.
Fair. I mean, it is Carleton, though. Like I said, the point spread's over 30 on average for the whole season. And to Mike's question before, it's like, how do you prepare for a monster like that when it's like you don't really have any sort of good sample size of – I mean, you could go back, like I said, 10 years. There's barely any games over 10 years that other teams are in with them to be able to use it type deal. And I would definitely agree that the shot selection differed. I want to touch a little bit on Carleton's defense again, and anybody here can jump in and sort of tell me what they see and how they think they would attack this. But the swarming defense of Carleton, to me, is the real difference. So, I mean, Carleton is often referred to as being the lock left type team, and I don't necessarily believe that to be true. I think what they do is they try to force each individual to either their weak hand or their weakness. And I think that a large portion of that, just like I said, I speak about Carleton a lot. A large portion of that has to do with the premise that so much of winning to them has to do with passing and shooting. So they shoot the ball well. I remember, and I said this off camera or whatever, but I coached at York, and when we played them, they beat us by 60. And when they beat us by 60, I remember speaking to Dave after the game, and Dave was talking about all of the players at Carleton are not allowed to leave practice until they make 90% of 200 shots. So they have to take 200 shots to be able to pay their price to leave. And as soon as they miss their 21st one, they then have to start over from zero again. So, you know, shooting 38% as a team, every player on that team can definitely shoot. And that's definitely something you want as a coach. But what they focus on quite a bit more is the passing. And you'll see from a lot of these clips that they're in the gaps. They don't reach on penetration. They reach when they slow you down. They're picking up full court, and they're just trying to slow you down and change what you're doing. So, I mean, here's a good idea of a full court possession. They're not pressing for the purpose of trying to turn you over. They're pressing for the purpose of slowing you down. So you can see Dalhousie's about set up, and there's 14 on the shot clock here. And in the gaps, they're under on stuff, and they're stunting on every pass. They call it bluffing every pass. They're on every pass, and they're right up on you, forcing that bad shot late in the shot clock. It's the ideal thing of what you would want type deal. I wrote in, can't get the angle on their defense. So, like, when I was asking Coach Barry before, like, what are you trying to establish? What are you trying to get? I think one of the things that really separates them and makes it hard is that it's difficult to get paint because you can't really seem to turn the corner, because I wouldn't call it a pack line principle, but it's almost like they're in the gaps like pack a lot of the time on your penetration type stuff that forces you to make difficult passes to the second side. So a lot of teams want to play first and second and third side to get a shot. Well, I almost feel like you're playing into them by getting multiple sides. So I'll let it run for a bit. So you guys can see they're swarming the ball. They're forcing you into bad passes. Look at the formation. It's like they already know where they want the ball to go and who to take it. And they end up getting what they want, contested. He makes on this, but it's the one that they are – no, actually missed on that. I'm sorry. But it's the one that they wanted to happen. By the way, great action there. So the question that I come back to, what do you do? What's your game plan going in? And we'll move away from Coach Barry a little bit and just like ask anybody else that's in here. You got a team that has established dominance over a long period of time, and their defense is tough. What are you trying to go to? What is the thing that you see? Ahmed, take it. I see you unmuting.
Hey, Coach Anton, congratulations on a really, really successful year. You guys are a top-level program. You know, one of the things that, you know, Coach, you mentioned, like, and I don't know which guard you were talking about, how they were stronger going left, but they were righty. And I remember listening to a podcast with Dave and Chris Oliver. And Dave actually broke down how he would coach against himself. And one of the things is because they're so heavy left, that's what teams are practicing for, right? So he said he would actually do the opposite. He would run practices forcing everything dominant hand. So you get that extra practice. So correct me if I'm wrong. You guys are sideline, baseline team, right? At Dal?
Yeah, no middle.
That's right, no middle. See, we were the same way at Laurier as well. So he wants the team, like, and he was like questioning, like, why would coaches go through their practice week preparing for us, sending everything normal when they know that we're going to send everything weak, and we're gonna hard hedge on the right side and ice on the left side. So that's one of the things. It's like you have to kind of turn your thinking and establish a rhythm for your players to be comfortable going weak hand all the time, and hitting those gaps hard. And you know, when the hard hedge comes, the big man's got to flash, look for the exit passes wherever it may be, because you know they're pressing hard on the perimeter. And you made a really good point, man. Like with the gapping, yeah, absolutely. I remember not this season, last season. We played them the best. We lost to them by 1 point at Carleton.
I was at that game, eh?
At Carleton, we lost them by 1 point. I still remember Coach Justin was upset because that was the game, and we played a near perfect game. You know, Ali Stowe was strong. Stevens controlled the middle. Like it was great. You have to play a near perfect game to beat these guys because they pounce on your mistakes right away, and they're so good with taking care of the ball. So if I'm planning for them, I'm doing exactly that. I'm preparing as if I am Carleton. You know, so I'm playing the same defense that they're playing, right? So again, it comes with. It might not be natural with some coaches because they want to just focus on their own stuff, but that's kind of it was interesting to hear that from Smart, to say that.
So that's really interesting that you say that to me, Ahmed, because in my opinion, a recurring theme that happens on this show is that a lot of coaches talk about doing what they do best and not altering from it, and not really having the practice time to have the ability to do something like you said, like, hey, we're going to play a totally different game than what we're used to for this particular opponent. But like a similar philosophy that I believe the Houston Rockets are incorporating a couple of years ago is what I think you have to do if you're in the same conference or in the same country as Carleton, is that like everything you have to do all year long basically has to prepare you for them. Because like at the time when the Golden State Warriors were at their dominance, they were the team to beat. So like if it didn't, and Jimmy, I don't know if you're there, maybe you could speak on this a little bit more detailed than I could or whatever, but if you didn't have the ability to beat the Golden State Warriors, there was really no point because everything you were doing depended on being able to get through them. Well, especially if you're based in Ontario, you don't really have a chance unless you can beat Carleton and get out. Like, so the way that the format works in Canada, for those of you who don't know, is that there's a final 8. So we have 4 conferences, and the winner of each conference gets a bid, and then the host gets a bid, and then the other ones are like at-large bids. And Ontario, the OUA, typically gets one of those at-larges as well. But like, even though it's, it could be top 3 teams that are going from Ontario, you don't really have a chance of making the nationals unless you can get through Carleton. So, Ahmed, in that instance, like for instance, when you were at Laurier, would you be planning for that game from earlier in the season type deal? And like Anton, now in hindsight, talking about this, like you guys went 5 times in 7 years, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Did it ever cross you guys' mind to be like, we should just really be aiming for beating Carleton? And
no, actually, in our conference, aside from this year, we always felt that we've never had the most talented team.
Interesting.
So us with every drill I kind of did, I was sprinkling to beat SMU, who I thought was the team that we always had to beat, right? So when that final came, it was like clockwork, and the guys knew. So this year, am I going to be lying? A little bit of SMU, but Carleton, like some of the stuff that we did, like I feel, especially like the first half, we did what we wanted to do, 24 points. Yeah, so
the interesting
I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Anton. Ahmed, go ahead.
Sorry, I think the problem with this is if you base your planning around a single team, I believe you kind of lose something, and you guys can maybe correct me from your standpoint, but if I'm focusing my whole season on Carleton, then when I play Ryerson, they've got a whole total different thing that we have to look for, and they're another solid team. Like the OUA is tough, right?
For sure.
Like our league is so strong, and Ottawa, obviously Ryerson, McMaster is getting up there with PT. Like there's a lot of tough teams that you really can't just say, okay, here I am, unless you kind of roll the dice and say, this is it. This is the best team I have. I am completely planning 100% for Carleton. We never did that. Like, and the thing about Justin Ceres, what makes him, in my opinion, one of the top coaches in the country, is his ability to kind of calm down and reassess where the team is every week. And Coach Plato does a great job of that as well. That's why he's, you guys are so strong year in, year out, that you guys are able to be consistent every single week with what you have and just continue to build and build and build. The problem is, like, when we played them, again, one of the things that comes into play is we're in the West. We play them 1 time, right? So we're not in the East playing them 2 times. So when we played them and we only lost by 1, that was a November game, right? And Carleton in November is way different than Carleton come, February. You know what I mean? So that's.
Let me jump in for a second, Ahmed. I'm sorry. To be honest with you, it doesn't get better the second time through. I'm speaking from experience. They make so many adjustments that you don't even feel that they're making type deal, because you're like, oh, they just do what they do. They just do it better, or they have the better players, or they make so many adjustments and they outmath you over time is the way that I would put it. They get a larger percentage of better shots over the course of the game, and they make their adjustments in games so fast. I mean, I could use that as just a quick segue. Like in the second half there, you can see, and I have some clips on it. I'll bring it up or whatever, but you can see that Dalhousie goes from man to a 2-3 and then tries man again, and then goes from man to the full court press quickly. And if you just I'll bring it up and show you guys, like if you watch how seamlessly they flow, where are we? So I mean, here's Dalhousie. We get a run out. We slow down in the half court. I didn't clip the length of it or whatever. And when we go up to run something, this is the first time they're seeing this in the second half, right? And it's just kind of like, all right, let's flatten out, and we know what we're doing. People in the right position, still 14 on the shot clock, and we're good to go from here type deal. And bang, we're still going to get in the lane. We're still going to stay calm. They call that their Nash series, and a lot of coaches talk about, like, you are what you practice every day. Well, their guards getting to 8 feet is something that they practice every day. So Mike and myself's former head coach was at Carleton, so we were privy to a lot of stuff that they had done there. And then when I was at York, we had a few players transfer to Carleton, and like I've seen some of their practice plans and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, when you talk about what they're working on, it really is, they play one-on-one every day, and they get to 8 feet every day. And that's the whole central tenet of everything that they do. When they get to 8 feet, stay calm, don't rush it, make your decision, kick it out, get a good shot. But like, you can just see, it's like the speed in which they make adjustments to things. So right away, okay, we're in a 2-3, no problem. Occupy underneath, let's look high-low, and to the basket. And it's just like, that's a second play that they're against a 2-3. And they don't have the play calls coming from the bench every single time. They don't have to be slowed down and get deeper in the shot clock every single time. Their guys really are that perfect extension of the coach on the floor. And I think a lot of that obviously has to do with what Dave talks about in terms of sustainability and preparedness, et cetera. But it's, to me, and I've said this on the show before, I'll let this run into the zone press, sorry. I've said this on the show before, but I do believe that coaching matters. And I do believe that even though they might have the better players or be the better team, it is possible. So, I mean, mid-clip here, right? I didn't catch the beginning of this, but you can see that their one guard here has just already picked up on, oh, there's pressure. It's going to be a half-court jump trap. So let me get in behind and be the release, because that's the position that we do. And broken, and we're into what we have to do kind of thing from there. Like, there's still 14 on the shot clock. Like, I wish our guys, Mike, could be able to make decisions this quickly and realize what's going on. And, you know, I pat myself on the back sometimes. I think I'm a pretty good coach. Like, it's just, you see how much they've drilled being able to be, like, into changes. And the point that I was trying to make that I went away from for this particular clip is that I do believe that coaching matters, and I do believe that there is a way to beat these guys without just simply having the best players on the floor. And I'm curious to hear if anybody else shares that point of view and what they'd see if they've watched this, etc.
Jimmy, I was thinking the same thing. Sorry, man. When I watched I watched that whole game, and oh my goodness, I thought it was a playoff game. Yeah. I thought it was a finals game. that you guys were just showing. I'm thinking to myself, why the hell would they? Why would they show it now? Because now the whole league now has a blueprint to beat that system. Right. But you have to be disciplined, and your guys were just so disciplined that it was outstanding.
So Jimmy, when you have an ace in your sleeve, do you practice having one or two in case you've like? So in this particular case, the scenario is different. Dalhousie's really only going to meet them at the national finals or an exhibition type tournament throughout the year. You think you kind of keep that one, like in the first half, like Anton said, they jumped it up a little bit, and that matchup zone kind of threw Carleton off. Do you have one or two other things that you can throw in there to junk it up for the whole game? And like, I mean, how often would you practice something like that? Like in your particular instance, what you guys did against Milwaukee, how long are you implementing that for? And the next time in that case, you've showed your hand, like you said, do you practice something else and throw it in? Or do you try to junk it up one more time with the same thing you did? What's the scenario in your mind? So to that same, same sentiment, a lot of the time, a lot of the time when people are talking about mixing it up or whatever, they're talking about the defensive end. Maybe Ahmed, maybe Mike, I don't know, anybody in here. Dennis, I see you in here. I hope you're actually there or whatever, but like if –
I'm here.
How you doing, sir? If you're going to throw something new, what do you guys feel about throwing something new on the offensive end? And can you implement that in a day or two at a national championship final, or is that something you have to have in your pocket from way back when? Like, so for me, a big thing that I noticed in this game is, like, obviously you hold Carleton to 24 points in the first half, and it's great, and you're feeling good. But what's Keevan's last name? Is it Vinoit or Vinoit? Vino. So, you know, Keevan at the half, 11, 5, and 5, right? Like, he's got 5 boards, most of them on the offensive side. He's got 5 assists. He's got 11 points. To me, I thought that was kind of a key that you guys went away from. And I think you went away from it just because they were swarming the shit out of your guards. Like, you couldn't get the ball to him in any sort of advantageous of your other guards, in any sort of advantageous position to be able to score. So it's like, do you have trick plays? Do you implement something? You know, we joke around, we call Dennis, you know, the professor, and we call him the madman on the offensive side because he draws up a lot of the original type stuff or whatever. But like, Dennis, when you're facing a completely dominant team and you're completely overmatched, are you coming with something new and original and tricking it up just for that one thing, or?
For me, it kind of varies. Obviously, the point of the game, you know, what type of game is it? What's the purpose of that game? If it's a conference team and it's the first time of 2 we're going to play them, depends on if we're at home or away. But the way I do stuff in regards to that is we have some things that we will work on that is specific to a particular team or a concept that we know is going to be a struggle for us. So we have a team that we deal with that's like that every year. And so we've got some things we work on, but we only use with them. And then we strategically decide when we're going to use them. So example would be this particular team, we played them 3 times one year. And we adjusted a defensive strategy and an offensive strategy. The first 2 times we played them, the first was a big blowout. The second one was an okay game. And then we played in the playoffs to advance to the I believe it was to the quarters in state playoffs. And they beat us in the last minute and a half because they hadn't seen what we were going to do. And so we knew that we felt it could work. The problem was we knew we were going to play them 3 times. And if we did it too early, we were going to ruin it for our chances to advance in the playoffs. So that's kind of the way in which we approach it. But when we're doing something like that, we work on it all year long. I try to have an idea of that ahead of time so they can work on it all year long, and we'll actually use it against ourselves, obviously. But we try not to show it because of being specific to that particular group. And especially now, early on in high school, you could try stuff and people wouldn't see it. But now with huddle and everything, they see everything. So that's the difference with high school. So that's kind of the approach we take, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That, excuse me, it does assume, though, that they are looking. Like, so a big thing in Canada.
Oh, this particular team scouts more than anybody in our league. So that I know they're looking.
Interesting. So Greg put in the chat, just for anybody watching the replay, just saying that you, and I'll summarize briefly, just you should spend more time on your own team's identity and personality and cement that daily. Not saying you shouldn't have a game plan, but whatever your team's identity is, to try and change it for the one opponent, it's not a good recipe in his opinion. And
well, I would agree with that, unless you are trying to advance in the playoffs. Sometimes you just have to change to get something done. If you know you've got to make some sort of a crazy adjustment. But for the most part, I would agree with that. Our goal is to be as good as we can be. It kind of falls along that whole John Wooden concept of success, being the best that you can be. I agree with that concept of kind of making who you are. But there is those occasional instances, I think, where you're going to have to do something crazy or just totally different, or give them a different look they've never seen to be able to get a little bit of an edge.
And so this comes back to the earlier discussion with Coach Barry. Like you guys, you play in the semis and you blast UBC, you win by 30, right? Like you're up 29 points, and that's a Saturday game. And then you got Carleton the next day. Are you starting your game prep at that point? Like, you've probably prepared your stuff, but what you're giving to your guys on that short turnaround, are you starting to deliver it immediately after the game? Is it like, hey, grab some food, let's go to film, and that's what we're doing? Or have you really been aiming for Carleton for a few days at that point? Because
I wouldn't say a few days, but you know what your bracket is. So you kind of prep for the teams that but I had a scout for every team, because if you go to the consolation, you don't know who you're going to play. But after the game, get a bite to eat. You have to watch their game. You have to go back to your room and you got to watch their game on your own with your roommate. All right. And you can take your own notes whenever there. But then the day after, we have them in video and we do our game prep as a team. So if they're in their room resting, it's late at night kind of thing, they're chilling, they're trying to recoup, and we just don't want to overwhelm them with anything. So,
Anton, I got a question for you, Coach. What did your shoot around look like?
So we went over some of our offensive sets. Coach Plato always likes to script his first 3 sets, so we went over that. On my end, I went over three plays. They do a transition high-low with Pandy. They do an elevator, but it's actually a slip for a Pandy ISO. And they do this spread ball screen for Pandy or Osborne at the top. And then I just went over the ball screen rules. So we down everybody. If Osborne sets the screen, we switch. So that's comfortable for them. We've been doing that there all year. So that's really not too much, I guess, preparing for Carleton in national final defensively, but we just trusted what we did all year.
So what I find interesting about that is like the way that you say that, I think could be interpreted as saying like, oh, maybe it's not enough, et cetera. But like, I find that what you've just said is what most coaches are doing. They are sticking to the things they know. They are walking through 1 or 2 type deals, and they are like very much in with their own identity. And like, even in the chat right now, like obviously you guys can't see it if you're watching a replay later or if you're watching the stream or whatever, but like, the adjustments coaches talk about, Brandt is saying like, if for instance, you're a hard hedge guy and that's what you're great at and their guards are fast but can't shoot, make the adjustment, go under, save yourself the headache. It's one little adjustment on the fly type deal, but you don't need to always practice that, etc. I think in this particular instance, if you're going to face this monster of a team, you have to do something wildly different, and you have to have a little bit of practice time. So like the question would be to anybody who's in here, how much of a difference do you guys think that it makes if you're not on a 1-day turnaround, but you're on a 3 or 4-day turnaround, being able to go in facing this team? Like, obviously there's, you know, the benefits of your players being better rested and being able to go through a little bit of therapy and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But how much of a difference does it make to you as a coach to have 2 or 3 or 4 days to prepare versus 1 or 2? And what would you use that time for?
I think for me, if you have more days to prepare, it makes doing something different a lot more feasible. I think if you play on a 24-hour turnaround, it's tough to say, okay, guys, we're doing this different. I think if you got a 3-day lead time, you can practice it a couple of days. Maybe you do it one day and you figure out, you get the luxury of figuring out, oh, crap, we suck at this. Let's not do this at all, or whatever. Or say you never play zone. You think playing 1-3-1 might give you a chance. You get a couple of days to work on it with your guys. So I think anytime you get a little bit extra time can help. But like, I'm with you. I think like inevitably the core of what you're doing has to be what you do. Like you can throw a couple wrinkles in, but I don't know if like a drastic change is ever going to help you win. Maybe it does, but I think more often than not, when you do something like that, you get ran out of the gym.
I think the thing is, though, is that you almost kind of end up in a situation. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but like if you're significantly the underdog, it kind of like everybody expects Carleton to win this game. And no disrespect to Dalhousie, because you guys crushed us when I was at York, and you're a great team and you're there all the time. But like if you talk to people in Canada, there's a lot of people who are just like, hey, you know, it's going to be Carleton type deal. And like, I hate that personally, because then you start getting a lot of guys like, well, why even show up and play is almost sort of their mentality. And one of the things that Coach Barry very said in the beginning of this was, we weren't scared. We were ready to go. And it was their game. They were very much in this, right? Like, I'm wondering, Coach Barry, do you think there was any point in the second half where the momentum changed your players psychologically?
I think we got like an unsportsmanlike foul.
Yeah, I remember that one.
When Shamar was there?
Pardon me, sorry.
Oh, he's on mute. No, there's a player, Shamar Burrows. He was at Laurier.
I love him. Love him.
So he, I think, grabbed Pandy's leg, I think. And the refs called the foul, and then Coach Plato just went nuts and berserk. And I just kind of think that not saying things went down from there, but the calmness that we had, you know, in the first half, I think it left there. And then I think we just started to panic, and they were playing well. We had a couple of lineups out there that I don't even think played together. So I think we, as a whole, players, coaching staff included, we might have lost our composure a little bit. That being said, I think with 3 minutes left, we're still up. So.
Yeah, you were there.
And that's the biggest thing, playing against a team like that. With the depths that they have, I've found over the past 3 years, I was coaching in the OUA, it's what team can withstand that mentality and not let any distractions take them out of the game. Like, see, let's face the fact here. Like, Dave Smart is a great coach and everything, right? Like, I know he's gone now. Taft is a great coach. Jamie is one of my good friends. They have a really good coaching staff, all that. At the end of the day, they have a ton of talent. There's talent all over the country now. With the growth of in our country, it's growing, and a lot of kids are staying, and it's gonna even out. But the biggest thing that they have is that culture, right? That culture that they have, and that mentality. It's that machine, that factory, that when you come in, it's that Carleton way, you know, and no matter what's going on around you, they find ways to make these guys into robots. Isaiah Osborne and Munis Tutu, who two of their top players, I coached when they were in grade 10, right? Like, these kids were stud players. They went play Division I, came back. But they were never, like, I know Isaiah for a fact, wasn't strong mentally. It's when they get to Carleton, they have this atmosphere where guys just become mentally strong, and they're able to withstand that. So it's pretty interesting that you said that, Coach Anton. It's exactly, it's like the Patriots. What you do as a coach to compete with that is you have to build that strong mentality culture where you're going to withstand those runs from them, and it's hard. It's hard. Like, it's something that every team goes through. Like, how does Ryerson beat them last year? They beat them in the OUA championship, and then they lose to them in the in the nationals, right? Like,
I have insight on that if you want.
And it happened before. Like, I remember when Windsor, this was 2007, Windsor beat them in the OUA championship, and then they lost at nationals. Carleton has that, like, it's nationals or nothing mentality, and it's taken a long time for them to develop it. And now that we're catching up, coaching has always been good. We've always had good coaches in Canada. It's just now the talent is starting to, you look at that Dalhousie team, man, they've got like 5-6 guys on that team that can start for any OUA team, for God's sakes. Like, it's stacked. Xavier, same thing with them. SMU, it's growing. It's just that mentality that they have is it's amazing.
There's so many things I want to unpack in what you just said there. So, like, the first thing is a bit about the structure of the OUA finals versus the national. Like, so for us, if you make that conference game in Ontario, you're automatically through to the nationals. So you see a step down in the compete level for that one game, because it's like, we're already through to nationals. Why risk injury? Like, the compete level definitely comes down. But then, like, talking about the mental part of this, like I was asking Coach Barry before, Jimmy was actually in this discussion with me yesterday, I believe it was. What's the coach's name at Finley? Sorry, Mike Peck was speaking about mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. That statement really resonated with me with what he said. Like, mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So, like, in the game, when I watched this the first time live in this particular game, when that unsportsmanlike foul happened, I really like, Coach Plato obviously went nuts, and he should, right? Like, it's not a good play, it's a mental lapse, etc. But when Coach Plato went nuts and that player got benched and like everything was going from there, I remember, like, yep, that's a wrap. Wrap it up. Because you could see the air kind of come out of the tires a little bit there. Like, there was a deflation moment. And when we speak to being mentally strong, like Ahmed was talking about, and all that, like, I have a little story about being at Carleton. So when I was at York, we were playing at Carleton in a game, and I remember we were there early for the game, and we were watching the team come out to practice, and it was probably by design. They probably knew we were standing around waiting for our gym time watching, but they came out to practice, and their practice was like just firing on all cylinders. They're coming out, they're in their shooting drill, they're attacking, they're loud, they're crisp passes, all that kind of stuff. They're bang, seamless switch into their next drill. They're bang, seamless switch into the next drill. And I swear to you, we lost that game before we played it. So, like, when you talk about the mental and the physical, etc., like, they have a climate of fear almost there that keeps their guys on edge all the time, because when it was Dave who was at the top, he's a very vocal person, would be an understatement. I often make the comment that I think at this point he wants to play a perfect game. He's not even trying to win anymore. He wants 85 or 100 possessions straight. So the question is, can you sustainably beat them for 48 minutes in a national championship type thing without preparing for them all year long? And I'll throw this poll in real quick here because I like the poll each time. But basically it's, can Dalhousie beat Carleton in a rematch, provided that everybody's healthy and we're going forward, given the discussion that we have? And, obviously we talked a lot about what it would take, but is it possible given what we've seen in this game, given what we've talked about all the way through here? And it looks like we've got an 80% yes and a 88% yes. Oh, we're moving up. A lot of guys think so. I like it. Like it, guys. Good job. So
Why? I want to know why. I think that I know why, but I want to hear why.
So I'll share those with you. We're just under 90% yes and 11% unsure. And when you say why, you mean why do people think that is possible?
No, like I think that we can, but I would just like to hear if what I feel would be different from somebody else. I think that we would just need to be better on the offensive end. That second half, it was pretty bad. And defensively, I thought our defense gave us a chance in the first half to maybe not sputter offensively, but 29 points, that's too low.
I think for me, like anytime you play a team that's superior than you on paper, right? Superior. You want to be there with a chance to win the game in the last 4 minutes. I think you guys were right there. And like you said, I didn't think you played very well. For me, the last 3 minutes of the first half and the second half, I didn't think you guys played very well offensively. I thought you got a little bit stagnant. So I think you cleaned some of those things up. Why couldn't you beat them? You were right there without playing your best game. Sure, they maybe didn't play theirs either, but what's to think you wouldn't be able to replicate the same problems you gave them on defense and play a little bit better offensively?
Agreed. Yeah.
You guys allowed only, 24 in the first half?
Yeah.
Right? Like I think that alone, you go into halftime and you go in there and you just kind of talk about like the elephant in the room. Like, hey, they're going to go on a fucking run. At the end of the day, they're going to go on a run. And it's how we respond is going to be the result. It doesn't matter if they go on a 10-0 run, 14-2 run, whatever it is. Like, we're going to get a punch in the mouth. It's how we respond to it and preparing for that moment whenever it happens, I think is always important.
Our Raptors announcer, he always uses this phrase is bend, don't break. And like, I find it annoying, but it's so true. Like most of the time when you're playing a team like this, you are going to get punched. What's the plan when you get punched? Are you going to bend and not break, or are you going to snap? I'm going to leave it with the hypothetical rhetorical type question there. I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining us and contributing. I really appreciate. Coach Barry, it was awesome having you on. I hope if you get a chance, maybe you join us in future for some other Run It Backs, because
I'm down, man. Holla at me.
Yeah, for sure. I value your perspective. It was really awesome to have you on. Shout out to my assistant, Mike Adamo, for getting on the call. Appreciate you. And then next week, the focus, we're actually going to have one of my buddies from Willamette College, which is a D3 in Oregon. We're going to be taking on Pacific, and we'll be doing it from Willamette's perspective and getting some insight from my buddy Chris Horton. He'll share his perspective. So we'll go the D3 route for the first time next week. And I'm just going to finish by saying, again, a continued thank you to Rising Coaches for giving us support, giving me support in terms of pursuing this venture. And thank you to everybody for jumping on the call. If you're not on Rising Coaches and you're watching this, I highly recommend getting on Rising Coaches, because the network of coaches sharing insight is something that you won't typically get day to day. Really appreciate you guys. I'm going to end the recording there. If you guys want to hop on to another call, go ahead. If you want to shoot the breeze a bit, stick around. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.